all about more, more, more. And there's truth to that, but it's not completely true. What I found as we kind of went through the past 15 to 20 years as a society, sport has changed, the world has changed. It started to go from this idea of just commit to complete acceptance. I don't need more information. I need to process information quickly. These are called heuristics or shortcuts because I can't process everything. If I were to process everything, I couldn't live, right? It's a very valuable element of the human experience. But there's a problem because then, help me out with this one, we don't have many ways to influence our mindset, right? One of the main ways is self-talk. What we call the reset routine has 3 elements. They're the most 3 important elements of sports psychology. One is your breath, one is self-talk, and one is imagery.
Welcome to Fightful Nutritionist. Today, I sit down with Nicolas Santino, and we're going to talk about the mindset of an athlete from a different point of view. Dr. Nicolas Santino holds a doctorate in sports and exercise psychology and is the vice president and director of coaching at CEP Mindset, one of the largest mental performance coaching firms in North America. Beyond managing the day-to-day operation of CEP Mindset and ensuring quality control across the company of over 20 coaches, Dr. Nick himself is also a mental performance coach. As a mental performance coach, Dr. Nick brings academic integrity and animated energy to his one-on-one coaching, where he works with athletes who are driven, disciplined, and attempting to do something exceptional with their lives. Together with Dr. Nick and his clients, build a custom self-regulation system that allows them to stop being consumed by the pressure of elite performance and start being immersed in the moment, ultimately helping elite-level athletes rise the ranks and take their game to a whole new level. Nick, can you tell me why you do what you do? Why is this your job? What drives you?
What drives me? 2 main things drive me, but they come from one central element. The central element is I love helping people be good people. I want them to be valuable, useful people in the world. Right now, I have 2 main purposes. One's with the athletes I work with, as well as CP Mindset. I'm trying to help the athletes I work with go from the state of being overwhelmed and consumed and stressed and distracted and beat up by all the success that they've achieved, because it's hard to not only find success, but also continue to find that success and hold on to success. I want to help them move into a state of enjoying their lives, being immersed, being present, and being intense with what they're doing. So there's that whole side that I'm sure we'll cover lots about today. The other side as well is the company at CEP Mindset. I've been here since day one for the past 7.5 years. And what we're trying to do is change the game of mental performance coaching. We're trying to legitimize the space and we're trying to create a sense of community within that space. I'm trying to bring on as many high-level coaches as I can, help them build a career and a life that is amazing for themselves so that they're not consumed by the stresses of the world and they're immersed and they're enjoying their life. Those are my 2 main focuses right now, is helping build a company that will help future coaches have somewhere to go, because many don't. We want to be that place where they could go and build a life and a career for themselves, find meaning and find purpose. Then, of course, on the athlete side as well, helping those athletes connect to that meaning, connect to that purpose, and move from that state of consumed overwhelm into immersed intensity.
The sports psychologist is a relatively new profession. Some years ago, there was no sports psychology. How everything started and how is evolving in professional sports?
It's evolving drastically. I'm only 30, and if I rewind 15 years ago when I was still trying to be a high-level hockey player and do that kind of thing, it was basically non-existent. And around here in the Toronto, Canada area, psychology is commonplace. It's not unheard of, but sports psychology didn't really make its way into my world. If I think about just the past 10 to 15 years, there's been a drastic change. I think for psychology as a whole, even outside of sports psychology, but particularly in sports psychology, the role it plays is interesting. I've dedicated my whole adult life to it. I got my letters in it, but it actually doesn't exist. Sports psychology is not a thing. What is a thing is performance psychology. The idea of how do I clear my mind and commit to what I want to do in the present moment in order to optimize performance. That field of study is a true field of study. What happened was not too long ago in the 80s, some of the psychologists decided to transfer that to one unique field, and they called that sports psychology. That gets diced up into a different area. What's important for everyone to remember is if you want to perform on the field, on the ice, on the court, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, it doesn't matter. What matters is having a system that allows you to clear your mind and commit to what you want to do. And that can transfer to any type of elite level performance. What I try to do and what CEP Mindset tries to do is create a curated version of that applies directly to athletes. We can be very specific on what versions of sports and performance psychology we want to bring forward, right? How do we consolidate down the information from the performance world and make it fit into the various sport environments that we work with?
I see often professional athletes, especially at the elite level, having kind of a conversation with themselves. How is important the self-talk?
Absolutely important. So let's take a step back from that and we could kind of bleed into the self talk here. The most important thing is having a relationship with the human experience. It is extremely important. This is the base theory or premise that I try to bring with my athletes. We are not here to reject the human experience. We're here to appreciate the human experience and build a relationship with it. We're here to garner greater awareness and understanding of what does it mean to be human? What is my mind? What is my body? What is my spirit? What is the world around me? How does that affect me? I want to build a relationship. Not too long ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, the main message was just commit, forget about it and move forward. And there's a time and place for that. I'm not saying that methodology doesn't work, but there's a time and a place that no matter what, I just let it go and I just commit. It's all about more, more, more. And there's truth to that, but it's not completely true. What I found as we kind of went through the past 15 to 20 years as a society, sport has changed, the world has changed. It started to go from this idea of just commit to complete acceptance. I'm just going to, everything is okay. I'm going to manifest it and I'm going to let go. And whatever it is, I'm not going to have any emotional response and nothing's going to hurt me. It was just the complete opposite. It was a reaction to this over aggression, over commitment culture that we had in sport and in the world. We said, okay, let's flip it and everything's okay. We'll accept and let go. Both of those aren't good, in my opinion. I think when we bring them together, that's where things really work. And that goes back to what you're mentioning, which is this conversation with myself. We don't have many ways to influence our mindset, right? One of the main ways is self talk. What we call the reset routine has three elements. They're the most three important elements of sports psychology. One is your breath, one is self talk, and one is imagery. When an athlete starts with me, on day one, we do a bunch of theory to, again, theory is a strong, funny word that most athletes don't love, but it's just an understanding. What is our approach going to be? Because a lot of athletes don't know how to approach this. We create an approach. Then the second thing we do is we work on breathing and self-talk. I would say, how important is it? One of the most important things ever. Now, there's a bunch of stuff we could talk about, how to self-talk, different ways and all that. But in short, absolutely critical to have a relationship with the human experience, to appreciate the human experience and learn to have a conversation with that experience instead of just either ignoring it or just accepting it for what it is and just looking at it and nothing matters. We don't want to do either of those. We want to converse with it.
You mentioned breathing, and came to my mind the 80s when Hickson Gracie was fighting and has been the first to use breath work. And today, many athletes, mostly at elite level, use breath work. If I think about an elite athlete, most likely is incorporating breath work. I wouldn't say that much in professional in general, but at the elite level, I see that often. How is important to control the breath under pressure?
Extremely important. Let's ramble on this a little bit. Everyone knows how to breathe, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be alive. But just like the air, you don't think about the air. You don't walk into a room and say, I wonder if I'm going to be able to breathe in there, if there's going to be oxygen. It's so omnipresent that we often overlook it because it's always there. Now, what does that mean? That means that all cameras, I'll use the word cameras, but all monitoring systems, all cameras in the body are pointed at the lungs because it needs to react. Think of it like this. I can not eat for days and weeks and stay alive. I cannot drink maybe for some days and stay alive. Right? Everything else, I have to maybe go to the washroom and stuff like that. But I have days and weeks until that becomes a problem. You have minutes until you die if you're not breathing. That's how important it is. It's a way to leverage your biology. It's a way to manipulate the system. Now, I'll say this. It's not going to do everything you want it to do. Can it? I believe it can. I think there's something called the holotropic breathing and where you could reach a state of hallucination, a state of deep meditation. I think, in my opinion, it takes years to get to that level. And you have to practice breathing at a level as if you were practicing your soccer or your football or your basketball itself. You have to make it your sport. That said, I think that if you can nail down some fundamental points, you can, what I call, start ushering your mindset. I think it does a great job of doing two things to help usher that mindset. One, I call it bring your mind and body to the table. If you want to have some self-talk and you want to have a conversation with yourself, as you were mentioning before, I like to think of it like this. If you're at a party and your buddy is across the party, there's music playing, and you try to look over, try to like signal to your friend and like he could see you. Maybe you could like gesture something to you and okay, yeah, I could kind of get what he's saying, but I can't have a thorough conversation with him, right? I have to go into the other room and sit down at the table and talk to him. I have to bring myself and him together. And that's what the breath helps you do. It helps bring your mind and your body together and sit down so you could have that conversation. Otherwise, you're kind of talking to yourself from across that party and you can't have the level of conversation you would prefer to have. That's one major element. The second major element is arousal level. Most of the time when things go wrong and stress occurs, arousal level spikes. Your central nervous system spikes. Not always. Sometimes guys dip. Professional athletes can dip. I could become sad and depressed and dejected. But on average, most individuals will spike. I'm holding all this tension. I'm holding all this activation in my nervous system. I want to start bringing it down. I want to be clear here. It takes a long time to reduce your central nervous system activation just through breath. But what it helps do is it lowers it just enough where you could kind of feel, okay, I'm kind of a little bit calmer. And now I could feel my mind and body together. Okay, now I could start talking to myself. And now I could get more calm and more relaxed and more present. Then I do imagery and I could become more present and more calm and more relaxed, right? It's not all breath that is useful, but it is a very helpful starting point that everything could come together, start moving. Then you add in extra pieces, and now you could really move that arousal level, really move your mindset through the addition of self-talk and imagery. The compound effect of it all together is what's going to create the most drastic change. But there's no point of learning how to talk or do imagery or do mental prep or all the other things that we might touch on today if you don't know how to breathe, if you can't connect your mind and body, if you can't calm yourself down and also speed yourself up. Things like breath of fire and all those types of elements, they're extremely important because I could start moving in a direction. Then I bring in my backup, and that continues that direction. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I was watching recently an interview of Djokovic, and they asked him, what is the difference between you and everybody else? His answer was, everybody has negative thought, pessimistic thought, but the difference is that I don't stay there for a long time, like
Mm-hmm.
the average person or the average athlete. Can you
Mm-hmm.
please comment on that?
Absolutely. That's that initial point of relationship with the human experience with that Djokovic example. He is 100% correct. And what he's getting at, in my opinion, is the idea between control versus influence. It's a very important idea. Most athletes come to me and they mention, I feel out of control and I want to feel in control. There's a huge problem with that term. This goes to self talk, power of language. And the problem with that term is what's called dichotomous thinking. For those of you listening who don't know what that means, di means two, cotomous means category. It just means two category thinking. Let's do a nice little fun, simple example. I'm either fast or,
Slow,
help me out, slow. I'm either tall or,
short,
absolutely. Either skinny or
fat, or muscular?
fat. I like fat. Let's go with that, right? Skinny or fat, tall or short, fast or slow. When we're talking and when we're thinking, but if you were trying to describe someone to me and you did it in that way, I would get it, right? I don't need more
Mhm.
information. I need to process information quickly. These are called heuristics or shortcuts because I can't process everything. If I were to process everything, I couldn't live, right? It's a very valuable element of the human experience. But there's a problem because then, help me out with this one. I'm either in control or
Not in control.
not in control, out of control. This word gets categorized as one or the other, this or that. The problem with that is in control becomes good, out of control becomes bad. This is called polarization. Now I'm chasing the fantasy of being in control. Okay. I'm running away from the nightmare of being out of control. And the reality is, you, me, and everyone who would ever listen to this is not in control of the world around them, and they are not in control in the world inside of them. What they do have is influence. Now, I don't know why the word influence doesn't get categorized in our head, but it gets what I call spectrumized, right? We don't think of either having influence or not having influence. We
Mhm.
think of either having more or less influence. That is very important. And that's what Djokovic is getting at in that quote. He's saying, hey, most people have a little bit of influence over their mind. Something comes in, that's my world. My mind gets pulled, that's my thought. Then I have a feeling. I call this how cycle. I get caught up in how I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and I get stuck on it. They're trying to be not there and all the way where they want to be. But you can't just be here or there. What you want to do is move that experience. And that's what elite level athletes like Djokovic, one of the greats at their sport, do is they could pick that up and have influence. They could see it, they could clear it, and then they could move it to where they want to go. Then it comes back and they see it, they clear it, and they move it. They don't ignore it. They don't stare at it. They see it, they pick it, they clear it, they commit it, and they're having influence over themselves. And that goes back to my initial point, relationship with the human experience. Djokovic is not denying the reality. He's not denying that he doesn't have control. He's not denying that negative thoughts won't pop up. He is accepting the reality of being a human and he goes, okay, now I need a system. This is how it is. Let me interact with myself. Let me build a relationship and appreciation of it. How am I going to do it? And that's what we do with athletes here. Build that ability to be aware, what I call TFA. It's called thoughts, feelings, actions. Be aware of my TFA, accept and let go of my TFA, and then influence my TFA, not control. You try to control your TFA, it's over before you even start.
I want to ask you this question. Came to my mind Mike Tyson when he used to walk toward the ring. They were scared, and as he got close to the ring, he turned that fear into power. How an athlete can learn or is something that is given?
I think some people have a better baseline just by their nature in order to manage the stress and the fear of life. But I think everyone can learn. I think just like anything, some people can learn more than others, right? We have an upper limit, but everyone can learn. I first want to talk about the difference between fighting and every other sport, even if it's American football, if it's hockey, that's very popular from where I'm from in Toronto. They could be violent, and hockey is the only sport that you could have a bare knuckle. Not only there's lacrosse as well, but a bare knuckle fight, face to face with no gear, which is crazy. But there's something different about fighting, and I work with a lot of fighters, mixed martial artists, boxers, kickboxers, jujitsu, etc. They have a certain level of fear going into their fights that no other type of athlete has ever come to me with. Doesn't matter how violent their sport is. There's something unique about one versus one. You've been trained to make me stop breathing. I want to turn your lights off. That is scary. It's primal. It's something more unique than every other sport I've ever, coached athletes through. That's first thing to remember. I think it's a unique situation. But what I do like is if we go back to my initial point, Mike Tyson was appreciating the human experience. He wasn't going into it saying, I'm not going to be scared. What he said is, I'm going to be scared. I'm going to experience it. I'm going to allow that wave to crash on me. I'm going to cry. I'm going to whimper. I'm going to be worried. And then I'm going to do something with it. And I'm going to clear it and commit to something so that as soon as he stepped into that ring, the light switch happened. Bang, I'm where I want to be. Now, everyone could learn that. That's what we do here at CEP. We call that fundamental system that allows you to do that. We call it a performance cycle. Things like pre-prep and mental prep and reset routines and alter egos and scorecards. These are a bunch of things that we could dive into, but that's that custom system of self-regulation I was mentioning. There's literal things that you can do the weeks leading up, the night before, the day of, where you're constantly building awareness of where your TFA is. For those that don't remember, that's thoughts, feelings, actions. You're constantly being aware of them and you're trying to build a relationship with them. You're trying to clear them. And then I'm committing. I'm committing to what do I want to do in that ring and how do I want to feel? Therefore, who am I being? That goes to that alter ego. This idea of having an identity and having actions and feelings that I create through breathing, through self talk, through imagery, as you and I were mentioning before, that allows that person to come to life. And it's not like, hey, I'm not going to cry, or hey, I'm not going to be scared and I'm going to be the warrior from the beginning. Even one of the greatest to ever do it, maybe the greatest to ever do it, acknowledge that, okay, that's not the case. I must crash under the wave of fear and then build from there. And that's, again, Mike Tyson's not in control, but what he had was a high degree of influence. Now, what is unique also about Mike Tyson, I think there's a lot of things that are unique, but he even got all the way into the idea of being hypnotized for 20 years. So that's a whole nother conversation, but I think a valuable thing to mention because I don't do hypnosis by any means. That's not my world at all, but it is back. It was something that was around in the 80s and the 70s and went away for the past 20, 30 years. And it is back in the world of performance psychology. I think it works. It's out of my wheelhouse. I don't do it. That's not what I'm all about. But I've had athletes who have either done that type of work before and then come and see me or did it while we're working together. But I do think that's an interesting element of Mike Tyson where he wanted to become completely accepting of who he was, that he was scared and he was a baby about it, that he was weak. And in that, he could build something instead of a denial of that reality.
Often when I work with an athlete, not always, but often, tell me how much it is and tell me what I have to do. And my answer is not that easy. It's just a process that takes years. How is in your realm, which I think is a lot more complicated?
Yeah, yeah, it is complicated, but I do think what I try to do with my athletes is week one, we meet. We usually meet for 1 hour and then I'll meet within 5 to 9 days, 5 to 8 days after that. I want to have a quick turnaround time. Go out there, practice what we were talking about, come back, let me know how it worked, what you liked, what you didn't like. All I'm trying to get that athlete to do when they come back is be like, that was interesting. I had much more awareness of what was happening. I could see where my mind was going and be like, I don't like that. And I'm going to kind of try to bring it back. And just that little win of, wow, I was much more aware of when my frustration was rising, when my anxiety was rising. And I couldn't necessarily change too much about it, but I could start anticipating it. I could start doing something about it. I felt slightly calmer and slightly more aware. And I could kind of have a conversation with myself instead of just hearing thoughts in my head and never responding back to them. That small win is huge because that's our base. We're trying to get momentum from that point. And then within around 1 to 3 months, we're trying to see a solid step forward. The reason that's the case is most athletes are coming to me never doing this before. We could create some early momentum because this is all new, just like anyone, right? Like if you're not in the athlete world, but if you're a normal citizen out there and you don't really work out and you go take 3 yoga classes a week for 3, 4 weeks, you're going to say, oh, wow, I feel much different. Like there now, if you're doing yoga all the time, you're not going to feel that difference, of course, right? But if that person has never done yoga, they're inactive and they start doing that, they go, hey, Nick, wow, I feel pretty good. I feel mobile. I feel energetic. Same thing applies here. Most athletes I talk to, they've never done this work before. We could gain some quick wins and quick momentum. Then we slow it down and we say, okay, let's build longevity here, right? We're going to come in every week, usually 30 minutes. We come in, we review, we test, we modify, we add one thing. Not 2 things, not 3 things, just one. And every week we do that. Review what worked, what didn't work, anything come up, add one thing. And we do that process until we stop. I have some athletes I've been working with since I started 7 years ago, a lot, 6, 5, 4, etc. And we meet on a weekly or biweekly basis. But what's interesting, as you mentioned, like the complexity, what's interesting about those athletes are the level that I've been able to see them achieve mentally of building their own system is, oh my, like the competitive advantage 3, 4, 5 years into it. As you were mentioning, it will take years. I think you can make progress, but then the progress stagnates because you get the early wins, good, 3 to 6 months, and then maybe even 12. But then for the next 2, 3 years, it stagnates. And all of a sudden, brother, bang, you reach a whole nother level. Just like in the nutrition world. If my nutrition sucks, in 3 to 6 months, I might have significant results because my nutrition sucked before and it no longer does. But then it might stagnate. Then you compound that over 3 to 4 years. Now all of a sudden you get this big step, this big exponential growth where the body is just adjusting to its new way of living. Same thing with the mind. The mind starts adjusting. Your comprehension exponentially improves. And all of a sudden, awareness spikes, acceptance spikes, influence spikes, and you've reached a whole new level. Seems like overnight, but just compounded year over year.
Nowadays, professional athletes, they have a lot of pressure coming from different directions. And then also having to deal with the losses, not just with themselves, but from the media, from the fans. It's not easy to handle. Also, young professional athletes, which are maybe at a higher level, they start to see all those money. How a modern professional athlete can entangle emotionally and mentally all these pressures?
Yeah. Let's go to just making it and let's work backwards from there. Let's say you're like 24, you finally get your first big contract. Maybe you got some dollars now, things are going well, and you have all these other demands around you. You might have a family, you might have marketing things that you have to do, and all these other things around your sport. If we rewind just 10 years before that, that individual is 14. Most of the time, that athlete is being well taken care of, right? They have the resources. They're part of a team, a club, or an organization that provides for them. Everything is hyper structured. And their job is to just get after it. And they start thinking, I'm resilient, I'm disciplined. And they are, especially compared to a normal 14-year-old. Okay. Very disciplined, very resilient. But their world is hyper structured. All they have to do is do what they're told. They're a soldier. What ends up happening is they fast forward a couple of years, they become 17 and 18, and now they're on to the semi-professional world. Maybe professional, but more likely semi-professional or low-level professional. And they still have a lot of structure, but it starts to dissipate. And a lot of accountability is on you. And just doing what everyone else is doing, like when you're 14, you just do what everyone else does, no longer leads to success. Now you have to go beyond that standard. You have to do the extra nutrition, the extra psychology, and all the extra things that your team or your organization or your agent is telling you to do. You have to go beyond that to get the competitive edge. Structure starts to dissipate. Standards is no longer helpful. You have to go beyond that. Then you become an adult, right? And you achieved what you set out to achieve. Let's say you're a football player and you make, shout out to Tottenham. I used to be a big Tottenham fan. You make Tottenham, you're in the Premier League, things are going well. You sign the contract, the money's made, but now you have a mortgage and a wife and in-laws and a kid and media and all these things around sports that you've never had. Then the pressure to maintain it, the pressure to maintain that lifestyle, to provide for your family, to have public relations and be a public figure, right? Be part of the community. And then you still have to think about, okay, how do I get faster and bigger and stronger? How do I maintain that level of performance and elevate it? Now you've added 10, maybe different duties in your life, and you have the pressure to perform. How do we do that? Well, number one, I always recommend start early. Don't start working on your mindset when you're 24, when you got the money, you got the spot, and now the world is extremely pressure filled and full of distractions. Start early. If you happen not to start early and you're that guy who's maybe 24 and made it and making a little bit of money, what do? What you do is you simplify. On the mindset side of things, you simplify as this. You categorize everything as either a distraction or a stressor. We do not allow distractions to be stressors. We come from the point of performance. So if you are, again, we keep up with that Tottenham player. If you're that Tottenham player, everything related to your performance will be deemed a stressor. Everything related to things outside of your performance will be deemed a distraction. Our job is to operate on two levels, the performance realm and the behavioral realm. They are not the same. Those are different. Habits, routine, structure, organization. That's the behavioral realm. Then you have the performance realm. These are things that we were talking about with Mike Tyson and Djokovic, the performance cycle things. They are not the same. 90% of the athletes that come to me, they come to me for the performance realm. Around 10% will come to me for that behavioral realm. Again, I can elaborate on both of these in detail in a moment here, but they're different. They are not the same. They help each other, but they are not the same. And we want to differentiate. I could throw it back to you, but I'd be happy to discuss what I call is the three worlds. Those are two out of the three worlds. Thoughts? I'll throw it back to you before I continue.
You distinguish between mental performance and behavior. Can you elaborate both of them?
Yes. I'm going to take it one step further and add in a third thing. I call these the three worlds. Okay. Three worlds are just, I call them worlds because they're so large and they're so lively, but they're the three categories of things that I work on with athletes. Let's start with world number one. This is the main one. This is what most people come to me for. It's called performance psychology. Performance psychology is about influencing your TFA, your thoughts, feelings, and actions in the moment. Right here, right now, I'm in the gym, I'm in a meeting, I'm doing video, I'm doing physio, I'm talking to my nutritionist, I'm on the field or the ice or the court. I want to clear my mind and commit to the moment. Okay. That's performance psychology. The way we do that is performance cycle, like I was mentioning before, mental preps, reset routines, reflections, alter egos. And that is how you become mentally tough, right? I'm right here in the moment. I could handle the stress in the middle of the game. Okay. That's a huge element. There's a whole field that's dedicated to that. Then we go to world number two. World number two is much bigger. Call it behavioral psychology. It's still about influencing your TFA. World number one is about influencing your TFA. World number two is about influencing your TFA. The main difference, it's not about the moment like in performance psychology. It is now about weeks and months. It's a zoomed out version. And it's not about a performance cycle anymore. Instead, it's about what are your habits? What are your routines? As I mentioned, a lot of athletes who succeed have a hyper structured schedule when they're young. And then they become young men and young women and they have all these demands. Hopefully, you make enough money where you can have an assistant or something and manage your life that way. But if you find yourself with not that much money or not that type of lifestyle, you need to adjust. And you need to have the ability to, how do I schedule my weeks? How do I run the business of me? Because you are not only an athlete, you are now a business person, especially in a modern day sport world where there's so much money and so much demand and so many other responsibilities around just performing. If we rewind 30 years ago, it's not the case, less so, only for the high level people. But now everyone is running a business, not just doing that. How do I run a business? How do I structure and organize? And that's discipline. World number one, influence TFA, in the moment, performance cycle, mental toughness. World number two, influence our TFA, weeks, months, habits, routines. That's discipline. World number three is the most abstract one. No one ever comes to me for it, but I go there anyways often because it's very fun. It's the world of exploration. Okay. That world of exploration, psychologically speaking, is still about influencing your TFA. Each world is about influencing your TFA. But instead of the moment or weeks or months, now we're talking about years and decades. And it's not about a performance cycle on the day of competition. It's not about how you organize and structure your weeks as a business person, like in the behavioral. Instead, it's about critical thinking. It's about analyzing, exploring, being curious. So, what am I listening to? What podcasts? What movies am I watching? What books am I reading? What conversations am I having? How am I exploring myself and the world around me to broaden my understanding of who I am and who the world is? And that's how you build wisdom. Okay. Now, again, no one's coming to me to build wisdom, but I'm hoping that over time, as we build a relationship, we could add more and more of that in. Now I have a whole world that I could learn about to influence my TFA right here and be mentally tough. Then I have that whole world of business and professionalism and behavior to build discipline. And lastly, I have that whole world of exploration and curiosity and wisdom building. So those are the three main worlds that I work within.
It's interesting. While you were explaining, come to my mind the question that I often ask to athletes. Usually, my first meeting is never about nutrition. I don't even mention it. One key question I ask is, what is your vision? Most, they don't know how to answer. Or they tell me something that has nothing to do with vision. A sport psychologist or someone that can guide a coach can be so important. And come to my mind, Mike Tyson, when Casdamato died, it was over.
Yeah. No vision. He never looked
No vision.
beyond that point. He never considered that reality. And I'll be honest, that's necessary. Having this kind of point in which I never look beyond and I'm just hunting down increases the probability that you're going to be able to get to that point because it's an all or nothing necessary end goal. If that's making a certain team or getting to a certain league or having a certain amount of playing time or a certain amount of points, whatever that may be, and hunting that thing down, it's a valuable strategy. It works more than it doesn't work. The problem is what happens when you get there? What happens when you achieve that? Now I have no North Star. I have no guiding light. I'm lost. I'm confused. I have obtained the end goal and I'm looking over the cliff. I'm looking into the abyss. Let's talk about like having a why or a purpose or a mission. When I work with athletes, I don't start there at all. Of course, I'll ask about it. Hey, what's been going on in life? Where are you at now? Where do you think like you're going in the next little while? Let me help you get there. Great. Conversation ends. The reason I do that is this is not therapy. Therapy does the opposite approach of mental performance coaching. Not that there's anything wrong with therapy, just not needed for this context. In the traditional therapy realm is we barely know each other. Now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to ask you your deepest, darkest secrets, and we're going to get to that why. We're going to start digging and throwing things out of that chest and trying to keep finding the gold. It's not what I do for two reasons. One, nobody wants it. Who wants to divulge their deepest, darkest, intimate feelings to a stranger? No one does. And two, it's not going to help you this week. It's going to harm you this week because I gave you no strategies. Now all these things that you have been pushing down are at the surface and you don't even know what to do with them. Now you have more distractions and more stress. We don't have a relationship and then you would have no tools. In mental performance, we start at the surface. I'll use this example with you. I'll ask you a quick question. Hopefully war never comes to the West, but it's always everywhere all the time. Let's just say they pick you up, they fly you across the world, they drop you from the helicopter, brother. What is one thing you would like in your hand?
One thing I would like my hand,
In your hand. You're at war.
food.
No, a gun. You won't even
Oh,
have time.
you're right.
You want a gun, hopefully the best gun with all the bullets, right? You need that frontline defense. Then I'll take a hamburger or something, a piece of bread. Give me something afterwards for sure. We want that gun. We want that frontline defense, that necessary tool. In psychology, in sports psychology, in mental performance, with my athletes, I start there. And that goes with that reset routine we were talking about early. Breathing, self-talk, imagery, right here, right now. I'm going to go out into the world. I'm going to go in my training session. I'm going to go to the game. I'm going to go to video. How do I become aware of my TFA, accept and let go of my TFA and influence it? Well, that's my reset routine. We start there and we work backwards. And the reason is if we keep working backwards, you could get some wins as an athlete. We could build a relationship with one another. And then as you have a better understanding of your TFA and your mindset, as you and I have a better understanding of each other, we could get to a point, okay? A point in which you have the tools and ideas and awareness, and we have the relationship. And now we could start going into my why. Why have I been doing this for 15 years? Why did I used to do it? Why do I do it now? Why will I do it in the future? What's this for? Having a deep why, the vision and what's next is extremely important. I think it helps propel you, but it's not the starting point. It's somewhere we get after we have built a relationship with one another and after I've helped an athlete improve their ability to be mentally tough, right? That goes to that three worlds. That exploration piece is my why and who I am and why am I that person and why, like what person am I trying to become? All those questions. We'll get there, but I almost never get there before 6 months because there's so much to learn before then. There's so much progress to be made and there's much of our relationship to build. And then we get to that point, and that's when you could have deep, serious, thoughtful conversations with someone to really capture that because the why is important. Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's usually for multiple reasons, not the first, often the last question we get to.
It's interesting. Elite athletes, let's now consider the one that have these amazing gifts like Maradona, Ronaldo Nazario, which had no discipline at all, but they had so many gifts that they were able to outperform anybody. The other elite athletes that they build themselves, they often have similar traits. They're extremely disciplined, they're extremely organized, they know what they want. And when they ask them, which is your stronger trait, they always say the same thing, mindset. How an athlete can build an elite mindset to become an elite athlete?
I completely agree with you with the difference between natural talent versus mindset. Most athletes that come to me, they have two really big characteristics that stand out amongst all other mindset characteristics. Those are their discipline, their ability to be coachable, respond, consistent, and do things they don't want to do, and resiliency. They might be losing their focus. They might be an emotional wreck. They might doubt themselves and have no ability to be present, but they'll push and be persistent anyways. Those two traits stand out for the most of the athletes that I work with. How do we help athletes create the mindset that works for them is creating their own system. A lot of people think that mindset is intangible, wishy-washy. What you want to do is create something that you do every single day. It's not something that I think about once a month or once a week or whatever, and you only come to me and we talk about things and my words fix you. My words fix no one. They don't even fix myself, okay? They fix no one. What works is action. And what works is how do I respect that although it's in my mind, that I could create something real in my mind. I could create a whole world up there and taking ownership of that. What I would say, how do you allow these people who are disciplined and resilient kind of prosper? Disciplined and resilient people are the ones who get stuck on results, who overthink, who fear failure, who doubt themselves. The talent guy doesn't do that. The talent guy is egocentric, big and full of life, and free from those stresses because it doesn't matter. They're kind of like an artist. They're creative. They're wild. They're unique. They come from a completely different perspective. But most athletes are not that person. Most athletes are the structured, the disciplined, the tangible, the go, repeat, repeat, repeat machines. Well, what I say is, let me help you keep being that person. I'm not going to try to help you be the other person where nothing matters. We're just going to party and have fun and it's all a show. It's just not the world we live in. Instead, it's about helping them understand what is your mindset right away. We know our mindset is TFA, thoughts, feelings, and actions. Then we start thinking about, well, what skills can I work on? Again, two main ones that athletes come in with already strong: discipline, resilience. But then we have to improve our focus. We have to improve our composure. We have to improve our confidence. We have to improve our centeredness or groundedness. And then we have to improve our communication, both internal communication with ourselves and external communication with the world, because then we have the feedback loop. We start chipping away at those things. And how do we chip away at those things? You do it every day. A lot of people think, oh, I talk to Nick, then I just live my life normal, then I talk to Nick again. We will get nowhere. We talk to me, we chop things up. I explain a bunch of things of what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. We have a deep conversation, and then you go out into the world and you use it. Now at practice, I'm breathing, I'm self-talking, I'm imagery. At nighttime, I'm doing my scorecard, which is my reflection process, right? I'm doing a mental prep before the game for 15, 20 minutes that you and I built out in detail of what we're doing, what we're not doing, why we're doing it. Then you got to go do it. It's not a conversation, it's an action. Conversations bring perspective. Conversations bring interesting ideas. Hopefully they're motivating and exciting and interesting. But then action in the real world is the thing that matters most, not the conversation itself.
Often I see confused discipline with motivation, while motivation is a feeling. Discipline, and now I'm quoting Mike Tyson words, discipline is doing something that you don't like and make something you like. Ali used to say that he never liked training, but he trained so hard so that when he was going to the ring, it was the winner. Can you explain the difference between motivation and discipline and how to build discipline? Come to my mind, Cristiano Ronaldo that says, I can tell you what I do, but would you do it?
Yeah, and you won't. And you won't. I think they're great complements to one another. I don't think one is more important than the other. I think they're different and they're both important. It's kind of like saying intellect and intuition. We don't want to ignore intuition and we don't want to ignore intellect. We want to have them together Yeah, I think you could find a lot of success just off of being motivated and riding the highs and lows of emotion. You could be that person. And then you could also find a lot of success being just a disciplined, very structured person, no motivation. I think a balance is necessary. And by balance, I don't say 50-50. It all depends on the person. For me, I'm more of a 70-30 kind of guy. 70-30, 70% discipline, 30% motivation. I rely more heavily on my routines and my structure and less so on the motivation element. I think it's a big piece of the puzzle. Let's start with motivation. Most athletes are motivated. The thing is, they're not motivated by the best things ever, and they don't have a relationship with that motivation. I'm not here to take away, some of the fun motivations. A lot of them are motivated just like anyone else, any other person. On the male side by girls, on the girls' side by males, or vice versa, whatever your pick and choosing is. Sexual attraction, of money, of fame, of cars, of whatever. All those are traditional things that people are motivated by. We're all motivated by people's approval. We're all motivated of being better than other people as well. There's these just normal human traits. What we also want to do is add the other piece of motivation. Start thinking about, all right, I'm cool with all that list of external motivation. I'm externally motivated. I want to make money. I want things in my life, and I want all those things too. What are the internal motivations as well? How does this relate to you as a person? And that's where the deep conversations come later on in programs, right? Where we start to get to know each other. And we could have deeper conversations. Start thinking about, how does this relate to you? Some people are religious. We start talking about religion, how it relates to your soul or your body or your God or all these elements, right? Start to connect to things that matter. How does this relate to your family? How does this relate to you as a woman or a man instead of an athlete? And how can I help that? We start to balance out that motivation side. So that's a big piece. On the discipline side, I'll be honest, most people I work with don't need help being disciplined. I think their discipline increases because by the nature of our work, but we're never trying to do that deliberately. It's more of a byproduct, right? But how do you increase discipline? It's called values linking. This comes from a whole bunch of different psychology elements, but values linking is, how can I have an understanding or connect the thing that I don't want to do to the thing that I want to do or want to have? Just like your Muhammad Ali quote, right? Where it's like, I don't like this, but I'm willing to participate in it because of X, Y, or Z reasons. Being able to being able to A, know that very clearly, but B, have the ability to reset and wake up in the morning like, shit, I don't want to do this again. And you go, okay, reset, right? So there's one thing, brother, about knowing your why and having values and knowing what those want to be. But how do you stay connected to it all the time? Sports psychology, resetting, mental preps, having routines that you do and responding. I love hot yoga. That's what I do. I do it all the time. I enjoy doing it. But for some reason, when I'm up at 6:30, I go, you know what? Maybe I just won't go. I'll just not go. But it's like, okay, how do I respond in that moment? What's my reset routine? What's my breath? What's my self-talk? What is my response? What is my relationship with that? That is a massive element. It's not only about having values. It's not only about knowing your purpose and having meaning and having direction, but how do I consistently stay connected to those values, to that meaning, to that purpose, to what's important to me? That is performance psychology. That's those elements of resetting and mental prep, etc. Because otherwise, I know it. I don't have ability to interact with my first thought and respond back to that initial meaning. And I'll just have a list on a document of some on my computer or on a piece of paper, and I'm not staying connected to that.
I see many elite athletes. The difference between them and an average professional athlete is the obsession to excel. Unstoppable obsession. I remember Michael Phelps that said that he trained for 7 years straight, no day off. Or even Usyk, which is the current heavyweight boxing champion, he said, I miss many birthdays. I wasn't present when my children were born, etc. I don't see that kind of mentality in the average professional athlete. They're not that obsessed. Can you comment on that?
Let's comment on that. Primarily, you don't want to be the best in the world. Let's be real. Okay. It's not good. What people think to be the best, like the best, capital T, capital B, the best, it's not fun. You might have fame. You might have money. You might have so many things, but it is not fun. It is not enjoyable. It might be pleasurable. You might have enough money or fame and things that it could be hedonic. You could eat whatever you want and drink whatever you want and buy whatever you want, but it's often not that fun to be the best, right? I think you can find fulfillment and meaning in it, but it's not fun. Let's talk about the difference between being that level of person versus an average professional versus an average person. If you compare that person at the best to the average professional, that person is almost psychotic compared to that, right? A level of intensity. And you might say that average professional just doesn't have what it takes to be great. Well, should they? Do they need to? Right? Are they slacking where their career's on a downswing? Well, then they might have a problem. But if they're keeping up and they're still working hard and they're extremely disciplined, and that's where you look below them and you look at a normal person. Are you doing more than an average person? Yes, right? And then you look at that average person and you keep relating down and down and down. I have a lot of people that come to me and be like, I want a Michael Jordan mentality. I want a Tiger Woods mentality. And they hate my response. I'm like, you're not that guy. What do you mean? You wouldn't be here. And they go, what do you mean? I go, those types of guys, they don't come looking for help. They don't come being willing to talk about their feelings. They're animals. They are at a level of intensity where nothing matters other than them. And I'm going to move through you. That's a completely different mindset than what it takes to be a high level professional. And as much as there's a fantasy about being the next Michael Jordan or something like that, it's more of a nightmare than it is anything else. I try to help people wrap that around their head a little bit and be like, okay, well, I don't need to be so intense that I destroy my whole life to achieve that thing. If that's what you want, do it. But most people don't want that. Most people want to have a wife or a husband and kids that love them in reciprocal relationships. I'll make a quick note. Shout out to one of my boys I've been working with a long time. He's in the Frozen Four of hockey. For those of you that don't know that, it's the NCAA ice hockey men's Final Four. They're actually, Denver University will be playing in the finals tomorrow. I was watching the game last evening, late at night with my fiance, and she mentions to me, she goes, because one of the boys' birthday was last night, right? She goes, oh my God, that sucks that it's his birthday. I go, why does that suck? He's in Vegas with like his buddies playing amazing hockey. Like, that's a pretty cool birthday. She goes, yeah, but like he can't spend it with his family. So I go, yeah. She goes, oh, can these boys during the regular season, if their brother's getting married, they could leave and miss a game? I go, if they want to lose their spot on the team, yeah, feel free. Go home, go to your brother's wedding. She goes, what do you mean? Come on. I go, what do you mean? I go, there's thousands of boys that will take that spot. You call them, they will be there and they will miss their brother's wedding. See you later, brother. I don't care. Right? There is a certain amount of sacrifice, even if you're not the greatest of all time. Even if you're not the Michael Jordan of your sport, there's still things that you have to miss. I think there's levels to it, right? You don't have to miss everything, but you have to miss some things. It is this weird balance of trying to figure out, who do I want to be? Do I want to be the greatest or do I want to be great? The greatest and great, although it's only one word that separates the two, there's a big difference there. Sacrifice comes in both. Tremendous sacrifice to be great, but unrealistic, borderline psychopathic sacrifice needed to be the greatest.
Dr. Santino, thank you very much. It's been a very interesting conversation. I will stay here to talk to you for hours. I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Thank you, sir. Ciao. Appreciate it.